time, weather.
Now for the Forge Podcast. Question for you. What's the power of your testimony if it's never shared? This is the Forge Podcast.
I was a drug addict in some way all my life.
Yeah.
And when I said that to God, and God was like, that's all I've been waiting for. Gotcha. We're going to do some stuff now.
Yeah.
And I went on this adventure with God from that day. And every time, like I tell people, I was always that guy that planned everything out, like so far out. I was looking so far ahead that I future tripped all the time. I was looking so far ahead that I'd trip on the present. I'm looking at the future and I'd trip on the present.
Right.
And so I literally told God, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to screw this up. So I'm going to do whatever you ask me to do today. And that's it. So what do we have today? And then I woke up every day and did that.
What clicked in your head that took you from, what do you call it, future tripping?
Yeah.
To, okay, let me just focus on today. What do you remember that? Was there something that
because I remember like it's one of those things where I always read the Bible before. Like you get locked up in jail, the only book you have is a Bible. But Bible never made sense. Like I'm a literature major. I've read tons of great classics in literature. I'm a forward thinker, and the Bible never made sense. I was like, this is the dumbest, most chaotic book I've ever read. And I make this decision with Christ that night, and then I realize what's happened, and I say, okay, God, I'm all in. And then I start reading the Bible, and it is literally like it starts to make perfect sense, clarity. I'm tearing through it. The very first book I ever read, I don't recommend that you do it like this, but the guy that was like, hey, I think this would be good for you. I read Ecclesiastes first before I read anything else. I'm a logically developed person, and I got through reading Ecclesiastes. He's like, what do you think? And I was like, that is a very clear, logical argument for God. Like it's a very clear, like it builds this clear logical case and then says, this is the only thing that I could discern is that you must follow God and you must love him. And I was like, okay. And then I started reading, and then I just, like some of those things where I came across stuff, and I came across somewhere in the Bible at the time, because I didn't understand the Bible, that it said that you only have enough to worry about today. Don't worry about what happened yesterday, because you can't change it. Don't worry about the future, because it's not here yet. Just worry about today.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
I can do that.
I just literally was like, I was so naive in my faith that I was like, okay, I'll do that. And somebody's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'll do that. And they're like, well, and I was like, no, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And so for like 6 years, I literally woke up every day and said, God, what are we doing today? And people were like, well, what are you about your future and planning? I was like, I'm just doing what's today, because I can't do this. I can do this. And like 6 or 7 years later, I look up one day and I'm preaching a message to a bunch of guys in recovery. And I'm like, look what God has done. I was so focused on today, and God just slowly moved me.
Yeah.
And I was right where I needed to be. But if you had told me 6 years ago, a drug addict, a criminal, who I was, and said, hey, in 6 years, I'm going to have you be a pastor and a discipler and leader of men, and you're going to talk about freedom in Christ, I would have been like, where is the ejection seat? I got to get out of here. But here I am 6 years later, because God was like, focus on today. And I look up and I'm like, oh man, I didn't have to fabricate any of this. God did all of it. And so
I think that is a lesson for everybody.
Yeah.
Regardless of the situation they're going in. It's Exodus 16, the manna from heaven, like
just enough for today.
And then Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow. Like just today, there's enough today.
Yeah.
But we are so focused on tomorrow and then next week, and what are we going to do for retirement, and where's our money going?
Yeah.
It's like, man, that takes us out. You cannot live today. You cannot live tomorrow. You can't live next week. You can't relive yesterday.
Yeah.
You can only do today.
It's the enemy's deception to take you out of your assignment from
100%.
God. God's like, hey, I have an assignment for you. And the enemy's like, hey, just look your head up a little bit more. Because like, and you're like, and God's like, hey, look here. And the enemy's just got your chin. And he's just like, no. Look at this.
It's the line that it's, when I get here, then this.
Yeah.
Once I achieve this, then I'll be ready.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then you're wasting all the days in front of you, and
you're never going to be there.
The culmination of my life, culmination of your life is right now.
Yeah.
You and me sitting here. The culmination. We can only live this.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yep.
And we can only.
And God's designed all of it just for that.
Right.
And like he's like, I've done all of this before, and all of this that will come for this right now.
Yeah.
And so, and so that's what I did with Teen Challenge.
I love that.
And so I just went all in there, and Yeah, who would have thought? Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, I was a homeless drug addict, pedaling a bicycle through the snow, and God, what an idiot! And now look what God's doing with that. Not because of anything I did, not because of how smart I am or how capable I am or how hard I work, but it was only because God's like, no, I want people to know how good I am, and so I'm gonna use you. And like, you're right. You don't deserve any of it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not deserving or worthy of all of any honor. He's like, it's me. And so just go tell people like who I am. And so do that all the time.
Can I ask you about your relationship with your dad? How did that end up playing out?
Crazy story. So my dad was, I can't stress this enough. My dad was not a good person.
Yeah.
Like, he was a very hard individual. Not just with us as a family, but just like,
do you know his relationship with his father? Do you know much of that?
I know his dad was like, he was one of 4 kids. He was the youngest. I don't think he had a terrible childhood. I just think that he grew up, kind of on his own and rough, and just kind of made a lot of poor decisions. Okay. But I mean, when I say rough, I mean, he was just a rough guy. Like, he had, I used to tell people, like, my dad used to carry a hammer everywhere he went.
A hammer?
Yeah. And so he carried a hammer because it was just more personal.
Will you pull the mic a little closer to you?
There we go. Is that better?
I don't know. You're not talking.
All right. Can you hear me? All right. So my dad would tell me that he carried a hammer with him because it was more personal. Like, he was just that kind of guy, right? So he should have died. I don't know. Like, he overdosed. I don't know how many times. Like, I can't remember how many times I found him.
Really?
But yeah. Like, when I was a kid and like in elementary school, my mom and I came home. She would pick me up from school. We came home, found him dead and blue, passed out at the kitchen table with a needle in his arm. Like, that was kind of like par for the course with my dad, And so he lived to be like 76, 77 years old, and he made so many poor choices. But I know what God was doing, because as he got towards the end of his life, he was very angry, not angry, just kind of violent, but not angry. Weird combination. But as he got older, he slowed down, and then he got cancer, like really bad, because he smoked all his life and lived horribly. And so he got lung cancer, and then it metastasized. He had stage 4 lung cancer for almost a year. In that time, I was living here and he was living there, and a pastor started coming by to see him from Life Church, Craig Rochelle's church, because he lived outside of Edmond in Oklahoma. And a pastor started coming by every Tuesday for an hour, and my dad asked him all kinds of questions. And then my dad made a decision. He called me one day and he goes, "Hey, I want you to know I made a decision that I'm going to give my life to Christ." And I started to cry. He was 76 years old, 76, 77 years old. And I was like, okay, there's a skeptic in me. I'm like, are you just doing this because you're dying? And then something crazy happened. Everyone that he knew said something happened with him. Something changed. Like, he became a different person. And he was bedridden for a long time, and he wanted to get baptized. And the weekend that he wanted to get baptized at Life Church, he couldn't walk for like a month before. He was bedridden. He was able to get up on his own, go to church, and then a month later he passed away. And so God, in his infinite kindness and wisdom, allowed someone like my dad to go all his life really sowing seeds for Satan for his whole life. And then at the very end, God was like, no, you're still mine. And so my dad was able to give his life to Christ, and then I was able to do his funeral. It's the first funeral I ever did. I did my dad's funeral. My dad's side of the family is wild. And so I was able to do my dad's funeral and tell people about the hope that is Jesus Christ. And half of them were high, and half of them were not receptive, but we did it anyways. Yeah. And so he gave his life like at the very end. Like, he's literally the description of the workers that come into the field at 5 p.m. at the end of the day and get the same pay. And I remember thinking to myself, had it been 10 years before, I'd have been so mad. Yeah. Because it wasn't fair. Right. But then at that time in my life, I was like, what a blessing. Yeah. Like, this is why it's not fair. Because if it was fair, nobody'd get it. And so, yeah, like that's how it ended up. But it was rough. My dad was rough. He was hard. He taught me, I mean, from the time I was little, my dad taught me all the things, like all of his parting wisdoms. Like I just had this weird grow up. Like, remember my dad when I was little, he used to tell me, you don't ever talk to cops. If your house is on fire and the cops come to your door to help you put it out, he's like, you burn up inside the house, you don't answer the door. And I was like, okay. I'm like 6. I'm like, okay.
What?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like all these prison rules my dad would teach me as a young kid. Like not snitching and don't get yourself into debt. And I'm like 6 and 7 and 8 years old. And these are the imparting, you know, it's not like, hey, let me teach you how to throw a baseball. It's just funny. It was just a weird dichotomy. He was the worst dad I ever had, but yet I loved him because he was my dad. So it's just a weird thing. But it was good that I got to see him at the end of his life, give his life to Christ. It was
First
crazy.
podcast we ever did was with a guy named Bob Kelton here.
Mm-hmm.
He's 85 now, but he accepted Jesus at 82.
Yeah.
And the moral, I mean, Jesus never stopped pursuing us until we're 6 feet under.
It's the kindest thing. I just can't understand. You just think you have it all figured out. Every time I think I have God figured out, he does something. He's like, oh, yeah? You think you have this figured out? How about this? And I'm like, I would have never saw that coming. Like it's like the biggest plot twist in any like reality show I've ever watched in my life. I'm like, oh, wow. Didn't see that.
Didn't see that one.
Yeah, it's like I didn't see my dad giving his life to Christ and really like making a change. So yeah, that's what happened with my dad.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Switching to men's ministry, what is I really want to visit all the campuses for Tuesday night. I was talking to Mike Terlizzi up at the retreat while we were golfing. I'm like, hey, I would love to find a way to go to all the different Forge groups, but Forge is very table centric, right? I mean, you build your relationship. So what are you going to do? Go sit with a bunch of guys that have formed their relationship? So it's not really fleshed out, but I'm curious about the other campuses and their men's ministry.
Yeah.
What is it? What's it like up at Fountain Hills?
So Pastor Willie is the men's pastor there. You know, I didn't know what it was going to be like either. You know, I get to Fountain Hills. It's a smaller community, smaller congregation. I mean, let's back that up a little bit. By American standards, the average church in America is like 65 people. That's the average church now in America. Fountain Hills is still considered a big church, but by our standards, we call it the smaller, you know, and so I didn't really know what I was going to get into there. Pastor Willie has over almost 60 men of a church of 450 coming every Tuesday night. And it's predominantly a bunch of older guys, but we've got some younger guys in there too. And dude, they just love Jesus. Like, so they've created their own evangelism curriculum and they're walking guys through evangelism. It's practical, it's applicable. They're going out and using it and doing it. They're not waiting on anything. Like they've said, hey, we want to be better evangelists of the gospel. So we're going to create a curriculum. We're going to start teaching it to ourselves. And then we're going to go out and we're going to do it. And so that's what's going on in Fountain Hills. It's crazy. Like 60 guys. Imagine a church. You got over 25% of your congregation coming, like 25% of your congregation comes men's. You think about it like here at Shea's got on any given Sunday, 4,000, let's just say 4,000 people. What if 1,000 people showed up to men's at Forge on Tuesday? So I tell him all the time, because, you know, he always wants to be bigger. I'm like, dude, you're doing an incredible thing here. And these guys love Jesus and they're mentoring each other. And at Forge on Tuesday nights in Fountain Hills, you could come out and drop in any table. Those guys welcome every new person.
Cool.
Like I
may just do it.
Dude, come out anytime and just drop down because they're really good at it. They're like, hey, tell us who you are. Tell us what's going on. They're just a really good group of guys.
That's awesome.
I love men's ministry. It's what I did for the last 10 years. I tell you, if you can capture a man's heart for Jesus, like life transformed heart, he is supposed to be the spiritual authority and leader of his home, of his family. And if you can get him, you get the whole family.
That's why what Willie's saying, we all want it bigger, not for numbers, but we want it bigger because of the guys here at Shea, the guys that aren't coming up at Fountain Hills. If they could just see, or if they could experience, peel off a little of their heart and see, let that thing get ignited.
Yeah.
we just want that for them. We don't want numbers for numbers' sake. That's dumb.
I talk about it all the time.
We want the ignition of the heart because of how life-changing that is.
Yeah, I think of the Valley of Dry Bones. I want to see people come alive from dead to life, and just watching them go, oh, I get it. Like this is all that it is. Like this right here, this belief, this value that I have in Christ, the Holy Spirit entering into my life and illuminating my path is everything that I want and need in my life, and everything else falls in line behind it. It doesn't find its, like, I don't make place for it in my life. I don't say, oh, you know what, man, you know what, this God thing is really good, and I think it'd look really good over here on this mantle. I'll just stick it right over there. Like once they realize that is it. It takes over everything, and then everything else arranges itself around God. Man, and then they go home and then they get their wives and their children. And you just think about when a man gives his life to Christ who has a family or is going to have a family, it's not just his immediate family. It is generation after generation after generation. I think of my brother-in-law who has 3 daughters who follow and love the Lord because he followed and loved the Lord. And they're going to have kids. And their kids will follow and love the Lord because they do.
Right.
And then they will have kids. And I'm like, generations later, because of this faithful dad who served the Lord. And I'm like, what if we had, I mean, gosh, look at vision. If every man here at Scottsdale Bible, every man that came, say 15, 16, 1,700 men, if all of them felt that way, you're not just talking about a couple of men in the eternity that is heaven. You're talking about generations after generations, and then think of the output and the impact they have on other people. Because when someone says yes to Jesus, it's not like, great, we have another person for attendance. They've made an eternal decision for the kingdom of God.
Yep.
And that sends ripples into the world and the sin around them.
Yep.
Like, it's not just, oh man, we got another one, mark that up for attendance. Yep. No, we've taken back ground from the enemy. We've reclaimed death to life for eternity. And so I just can't think of a better place for men to come where they're like, come and see, like it's that, come and taste and see that the Lord is good. Mm-hmm. Just see. Because then you kind of open up the horizon to what could be possible in my life. I see Bob over here. Like, I remember Bob. Like, Bob and I used to, sit around and drink together on Friday nights. And, dude, Bob is walking this out, and it looks really, really attainable. Mm-hmm. And there's this guy, Steve, over here, and Steve was an absolute mess. He was telling me. And then one day he made a decision for Jesus, and it didn't get easier, but he said he got more capable. I want that for my life. And so there's a community that happens in Forge where things impossible becomes possible.
Yeah.
And so that just, that's a reality that I just love.
Yeah. Last question. Do you have a good book you want to refer to everybody? Something that,
oh man,
one from the past or one you're reading now?
You know what's funny is I've had a stack of books on my bookshelf that people have been giving me over the last 3 years. I just finished seminary last Friday.
Oh, cool.
Just graduated seminary last Friday.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And
that's got to be a...
Yeah, everything I've been reading for the most part has been, like 3rd century church history. Like I think I read the life and times of Saint, Ignatius or whatever. But
Ignatius?
Yeah. And so I've just been like...
Of Loyola? That guy?
Yeah. So I've just been like... but I tell you, what's a good book that I read? Here's a great book. It's really heady. There's 2 versions of it, but The Rise and Fall, the Triumph of the Rise and Fall, the Triumph of the Modern Self. I'm trying to remember there's another version of it that's only 200 pages, but there's like a 480 page version that's very clinical, and it is a study of modernity and a study of how we've gotten to where we are in culture with morality, going all the way back to the Renaissance. How did we get from the Renaissance to Marxism, and how does like if you were to ask people on the street, are you a Marxist? They'd be like, no. But if you look at what we believe about culture and what we believe in the world today,
it aligns.
You're like, well, we're pretty Marxist.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating look at where we are in culture and how we can interact with people in culture, and then how we got to where we are. Because instead of just coming in with, this is what I love, instead of just being right, which we have the truth of the gospel, instead of just being right, what would it look like if you had relationship and you put being right, like you were like, you know what, I'm right, but it doesn't need to be paramount in my conversation with you. I don't have to be right, but we could have relationship because I understand where you're coming from. I understand why you think the way you do. I understand Freud and Skinner and all these guys with the sexual revolution. I can understand how we got here. Yeah. So I can have compassion for the understanding that you have because you have a limited understanding of the truth. And so instead of beating you over the head with the truth, I want to bring it to you like a cold cup of water. And then I want you to be like, oh, this is refreshing. And you say, yeah, because it's the truth. And I'd like to give you more. And so that's a really good book. Rise and Fall of the Modern Self.
Okay. And then one more question. What was your favorite thing to learn in seminary? What favorite class, favorite subject, favorite?
My favorite professor was a guy named Dr. Stephen Doobie, who was my theology professor. I took him for a bunch of theology courses. Sadly, I think my favorite class would have been ethics because of my logic background, but it was the last class I took in seminary. And so I don't know if you've ever had to do one last thing before you complete something that has been hanging over your head for years. And so I sadly felt like I probably cheated that class with my attention. But the thing that I think that I learned the most in seminary is that all of this information, all of the learning that I did, all of the, rich church history that I was involved in and understood, and the dissemination of the word, all of it doesn't happen without Jesus and the activation and the power of the Holy Spirit. And so I just get to, I'm just reminded of that all the time. And I'm like, I learn all this information, but none of it is profitable without Jesus. And so I actually came out of seminary with this power and this ignited power for Jesus. And now I have this information behind it to be like, hey, I'm credible in this, but none of it activates without the power of the Holy Spirit. And so that's what I came out of seminary with. But I read a lot of, there's a 4-volume book set called Reformed Dogmatica from Herman Bavinck. It is thousands and thousands of pages, and it is fascinatingly good.
Thousands and thousands?
Well, I mean, the second,
you lost me.
The fourth book, which was the fourth book was 1,700 pages. They're text. It's like his magnus opus of theology.
And you enjoy that?
Yeah, I loved it.
Okay,
I loved it. I mean, he lays everything out. He's like, I'm going to tell you about everything that's out there, and then I'm going to show you what the truth is. Oh. And so it wasn't like he was just like, hey, here's what the truth is. He said, no, let's talk about all of it.
Oh, neat.
And he was like a 17th century Dutch theologian and super smart. And I just found it fascinating. And then church history. I never thought I'd be a church history buff or nerd, but man, all the ecumenical councils and all the things that go into that. I just was fascinated by church history. Just a bunch of dudes just trying to figure out Jesus.
That's right.
Yeah, so it was just good.
I do have to ask one more question. Anybody for advice for somebody that's out there struggling in isolation with substance abuse, with whatever, what would you tell them? What would you say to them?
What I would say to them is, you feel like you're alone. You feel like you're a unique snowflake, like you're terminally unique. There's no one in the world who could understand what I'm going through because it's my experience and you don't understand my experience. What I would say to them is, you're not alone, because I felt the same way. And it wasn't until I looked my head up from my little pile of stuff, emptied out my hands and said, okay, my hands are open. What do I do with this? And then God was like, I'm going to give you something. And what he gave me was belonging. What he gave me was hope. And I would say to them that there's that for them, because sin, Satan, addiction is a shackle that wants to keep you isolated, wants to keep you alone, wants to keep you thinking that you're terminally unique. There's no recourse for you. And that's just sin and Satan's way of saying, keep looking down, keep looking right here. Because as long as you're looking in your hands and you're not looking up, you can't see that God is standing there like this going, you're mine.
So what's their first step out of, lifting their head up? I know.
The first thing you got to do is you've got to call someone. You've got to reach out to someone and say, hey, I feel like I'm alone. You got to call a buddy. You got to walk into an AA. I'm not the guy that's like, hey, there's only one path. If it's AA, if it's the Forge, there's someone in the Forge every Tuesday night that's like, yeah, man, Did you destroy your marriage because of infidelity or addiction? Can you not stop gambling? Can you not stop thinking that if you just made another dollar, you'd be safe? There's a guy in the Forge that dealt with that. So you could walk in any Tuesday night to any Forge at any campus at Scottsdale Bible, and you could realize that you're not alone, and you have to ask for help. Like I love that. Like you have to walk in and say, I need help. Mm-hmm. Because what it does is it gets you out of this me focused, and you say, I need help. Mm-hmm. And what you're going to find, and this is what happened to me, is God goes, yeah, you do. And I've got you right where I need you. So that's what I would say.
Love it. Raygen, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you making the time. And I said, I could sit here and chat with you. This has been a real treat to just hear your testimony and just chat with you. So.
Thanks. Like I said, I am. Yeah, we left all the juicy stuff out, which is what I really appreciate. But yeah, we had a great time.
I was telling my wife, I'm like, yeah, we ran into him at church, and he's like, you know what? I just share everything. Like my wife's like, do you really need to share that? Do you really need to share that? Like, can we just hold on? that?
Yeah. No, I told her.
Had a good laugh.
I told her last night. I was looking at my thing. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing the Forge podcast tomorrow night, and tomorrow. And my wife was sitting there, and we were about to go to bed, and she was like, she's like, do you have to? And I was like, it's gonna be fine. Like it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be okay. So it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and see you Tuesday.
See you Tuesday, man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Forge Podcast.